Have you ever wondered why you go to school? You go to school to expand your knowledge, to prepare for future work, to please your parents. But what about going to school to beat up those who look down on you? That's what Sakura learned after a long time of experiencing loneliness and enduring cold treatment from everyone. He didn't know when it started, but he was always in such a situation. Anything bad happened, it was always Sakura's fault. If something was stolen from the class, it was blamed on Sakura. If the literature exam was out of the expected topics, it was also because of Sakura. Even COVID-19 was blamed on Sakura sneezing. Sakura felt like a bad omen in his life. Suddenly, he woke up and realized it was just a nightmare. But it didn't change anything. All the resentment and disdain still lingered around him. It was early spring, and cherry blossoms were scattered all over the streets. As Sakura put on his coat and walked down the street, he muttered to himself, "I'm only interested in the strong. The weak don't matter to me." Meanwhile, a young woman was being surrounded by a group of troublemakers while she was shopping for groceries at the market. Despite the situation, she stood her ground and firmly told them, "I'm more concerned about losing my eggs than dealing with you all." Her tough demeanor seemed to only encourage the thugs, and they didn't let her leave. Just then, the main character happened to walk by. He approached the group calmly, placed a hand on one of the thugs' shoulders, and said, "Hey, it's only 9 a.m. Let's not do anything foolish. Standing in front of me is already foolish." "Shall knock out your teeth and scatter them like pebbles down the mountain," the thug sneered, swinging a punch at the young man. But the youth easily dodged it. "That's all I was waiting for," he said. "Now it's self-defense." He landed a punch that sent the thug sprawling on the ground like a piece of sashimi. Soon, 4 more thugs were down, rolling around like pieces of sushi. The young man grabbed the first thug by the collar and declared, "Remember my name. I'm Sakura Haruka, a student at Furin High School, and I can't stand weaklings who act tough." After speaking, the young man turned to leave, seemingly forgetting something. Oh, right, the woman! She quickly ran after him, calling out, "Hey, young man! Thank you so much!" The youth looked around, confused. "Who are you thanking? There's no one else around," he muttered. "I'm thanking you, of course," she replied with a smile. Embarrassed and blushing, he stammered, "I just hate those guys, that's all. Who said I was saving you?" Despite his earlier bravado, he seemed flustered now that a girl was involved. The woman chuckled and asked him if he was hungry. Finally, the woman took him to her restaurant and served him a plate of rice with egg and tomato sauce. As they chatted, Sakura revealed that he was new to the town and had just enrolled at Furin High School. He considered himself somewhat unusual, but the woman brushed it off. "I've seen crazier people than you," she said. "This town used to be full of gangs and brawls, but things have calmed down a lot now." She introduced herself as Tachibana. "I just knocked out 5 guys like it was nothing, and this woman doesn't seem scared at all." Sitting there in a daze, he finally answered her question about eating. The food was so delicious that he enjoyed it heartily. As he ate, Tachibana glanced at his hair and said, "Wow, your hair and eyes are so unusual. They're neither dyed nor wearing contacts, right?" Upon hearing this, Sakura recoiled a bit, like a hedgehog, but Tachibana complimented his eyes, saying they were like jade. Sakura was surprised. He was used to people criticizing his appearance, not praising it. She assured him, "There are plenty of people who are even more intimidating than you." Sakura then shared that he enrolled at Furin High because the school had a reputation for being both academically weak and full of troublemakers. His goal was to become the top leader at Furin. Tachibana realized something after hearing this. "Oh, it's not the first day of school yet, and you're already walking around in your uniform. You must be really eager to start, huh?" She added with a chuckle, "You're taking on 5 guys by yourself, and yet your personality is still so childish. Wow." At that moment, an elderly customer was leaving the restaurant. He said goodbye to Tachibana, but Sakura called him back. It turned out the old man had left behind a bag. Sakura returned it to him, and the old man asked Tachibana to give Sakura a few candies as a token of gratitude. The bag was a gift for his grandchild, and he thanked Sakura for not letting him forget it. Hearing the word thank you made Sakura flush with embarrassment like a pot of boiling noodles. He muttered to himself, "This town is so naive. The people here are way too friendly. I'm wearing a notorious school uniform, and yet everyone treats me like family without any suspicion." Back in my old town, I returned a wallet and was accused of theft. Living in the hood was so different. Everything here just feels so strange. Hearing this, Tachibana bluntly said, "Someone like you will never become the top at Furin." Sakura was infuriated. "You don't know how strong I am," he retorted. Tachibana added, "It doesn't matter. You're on your own, and that means you'll never be the leader at Furin." Angered by her words, Sakura stormed out, leaving the chair he had been sitting in unceremoniously. He declared, "I'm not weak. I don't need anyone's help." At that moment, a riot broke out in the street. The gang from earlier was smashing shop windows and destroying property. Panicked residents were calling for help, while the gang found Sakura again and sought revenge for the earlier confrontation. Sakura ignored them and tried to walk away. The road was blocked, so the gang leader stopped him, saying, "You think I'd forget you? How could anyone forget someone with hair like yours?" The thug mocked Sakura, saying, "At night, you're just a stray dog without a proper coat, right?" Ironically, the thug's insults made Sakura feel secure. He was so accustomed to being ridiculed and shunned that he couldn't handle the townspeople's kindness. Deciding to take action, Sakura faced off against the thug again, delivering a solid punch that sent him sprawling. What followed was a series of spectacular battles, one against many, often against 20 opponents at once. The scenes were as thrilling as a Jackie Chan movie, with Sakura effortlessly dodging every attack and landing strikes that left his opponents reeling. At that moment, Tachibana heard the commotion and ran out to see what was happening. She was shocked to find that the boy who had just eaten her egg rice was now giving the thugs a taste of his own fists. Just as she stepped outside, one of the thugs with a knife took her hostage. Sakura quickly dealt with the thug, disarming him and making it clear that this fight was only about fists. However, Sakura now had to fight while also protecting Tachibana. As he fought, he wondered why he was so invested in protecting her. Meanwhile, one of the thugs grabbed a knife and slashed at Sakura's leg. Eventually, both Sakura and Tachibana were cornered, with the situation seeming dire as a baseball bat was raised, threatening to end everything. But unexpectedly, a figure rushed out and intercepted the baseball bat. This person was also wearing a Furin High School uniform. Behind him, 3 more Furin students appeared. Mr. An, a senior, grabbed the bat and broke it in half, shouting at the thugs, "How dare you cause chaos in this town? Pray to the gods, Buddha, or even Chairman Mao. Whatever you believe in, get out of here. We won't tolerate this." He also warned Sakura not to reveal that Tachibana was in danger, in case the thugs figured out who was involved. Seeing the Furin uniforms, the thugs were intimidated, but one of them defiantly yelled, "We outnumber you 4-1! You think you can take us all on?" Despite the odds, the thugs continued to fight, and Mr. An proceeded to take down each member of the gang. During this time, Sakura was still in shock, grateful that the Furin students had come to his rescue. Mr. An, noticing Sakura was injured, told him, "If you're hurt, step back and let us protect you." At the same time, Sakura heard the townspeople cheering as the Furin students decisively took down the thugs. Tachibana then explained that the town had once been extremely chaotic due to violent gangs and the complete ineffectiveness of the law. However, 2 years ago, a group of foreign high school students unexpectedly hung a sign at the town's entrance, declaring that anyone who vandalized or harmed others would be punished. Over time, the townspeople came to refer to the Furin group as the Furin Shields of the town. After the battle ended, the townspeople poured into the streets to celebrate with the Furin students. Although the townspeople generally disliked violence, they appreciated that the Furin group used it to protect and help them. This was completely contrary to Sakura's past experiences. Even the townspeople came to thank him, which made him uncomfortable. An elderly person even offered to tend to his leg wound, but Sakura, feeling overwhelmed, insisted, "I'm not used to this. Please, move aside." Finally, Tachibana said, "You're just acting tough. I know you don't want to be alone. You have a noble heart and want to help others. From now on, try to open up to the people around here." Sakura was deeply moved by her words. Sakura's leg seemed to heal quickly, and he kicked the thug who had just gotten up, sending him sprawling again. It looked like Sakura would start learning to integrate with others instead of remaining the solitary figure he used to be. The first task after joining the community, which made Sakura frown and grumble, was to carry an elderly woman to Tachibana's restaurant. He grumbled and jumped down from his back as if she were a superhero. "Why elf?" she joked. Despite this, the elderly woman thanked Sakura for carrying her, and even though Sakura was blushing and had never been thanked before, he appreciated it. The elderly woman's thanks made Sakura blush, as he had never been thanked before. Just as he was about to leave, Tachibana asked him to stay and enjoy a meal. It was the day of the school's opening ceremony, but it wouldn't start until the afternoon. Sakura, however, was already in his uniform and wandering around the streets by Tensoman-im, clearly excited to start school. At that moment, someone called out to Tachibana. A young Nirai was a regular at the restaurant. Nirai went on a long spiel about the greatness of the Furin heroes, clearly a big fanboy with stars in his eyes. Sakura, however, simply replied that his reason for being at Furin was to achieve the top spot at the school, not to chase after any heroic ideals. Nirai's expression turned serious, as if he was expecting a more impressive answer from someone he thought was just a nobody. He scoffed at Sakura's ambition, saying, "You're dreaming of becoming the top at Furin? Instead of wishing for a mansion or a fancy car, you're aiming for this? Forget it." Decided he'd had enough. He stormed out, grumbling about how he was late and hadn't had breakfast. On his way out, he bumped his head on the doorframe. Was he clumsy because he kept bumping his head, or did he bump his head because he was clumsy? It was unclear. Sakura couldn't believe that such an idiot got into Furin and was acting all high and mighty about being a hero. He thought Sakura cared so much about appearances. He explained that in his old town, anyone who was all show was usually just pretending and didn't really know how to fight. They just ran away. Tachibana then made a comparison, asking if Sakura knew the true color of coffee. Of course, Sakura didn't, as he thought coffee was just brown. Tachibana explained that coffee beans are actually red when harvested and turn brown only after processing. The point was to not judge a book by its cover. Until you really get to know someone, you can't truly understand who they are. Sakura was deeply touched by this insight. Since the town had accepted him for who he truly was, he figured that Nirai must be good at fighting, given his bravado. However, his thoughts were interrupted when a street vendor offered him free pastries, simply because he was wearing the Furin uniform. The vendor mentioned that Sakura's solo defeat of more than a dozen thugs the previous day was well known around town. Sakura, feeling embarrassed by the praise, declined the offer and continued on his way. The vendors, familiar with his demeanor, just placed the pastries in a bag for him to take. Throughout the day, Sakura was treated to all sorts of free food and drinks from various vendors. Despite being showered with such hospitality, Sakura remained wary and continued to reject their offers, still trying to understand the extent of the town's friendliness. Sakura was startled by a shout, almost reacting instinctively with a punch. However, a girl pleaded for his help. In a dark alley, she was being harassed by a group of thugs. It turned out that Nirai had stepped in to confront them, trying to protect her. The thugs mocked Nirai, calling him weak and questioning the effectiveness of foreign students as the town's protectors.